Welcome to the Bill Cartwright Show with our special guest, CEO and founder of Empower Me Academy, EMA, and USF alum,
Yep.
Jerome Gumbs. Jerome, welcome to the show.
Bill, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast. I've checked out a few of them and, I'm super excited to be here, and especially when I'm in the presence of greatness from USF. Yeah, thank you for having
Well, I don't know about the greatness, but we're alums, so just that right there is great.
me. I like that deflection. I know we're basketball players, but I didn't know we was going to play tennis. But I'll follow your lead. I won't say it again on camera, but I'll
Well,
say it
this
to
is what I would
others. But
like.
yeah,
I'd like everybody to get you to know you really quickly.
yep,
Let me just talk about where you're from, and let's talk about what I think is really important, mom and dad.
yep. Well, great questions. And intuitively, whenever someone asks me who I am, that's the first thing I go back to. So I really appreciate the opportunity. You know, I'm from the Caribbean. I'm from St. Thomas. The U.S. Virgin Islands is made up of three islands: St. Thomas, St. John, St. Croix, and St. Thomas is the capital. Most people are familiar with St. Croix because that's where Tim Duncan is from and Roger Bell. So oftentimes when people give me that look like, where is that? I'll just say, Tim Duncan is from St. Croix. And they'd be like, oh, I know where that is. So that's where I'm from. Grew up, very humble beginnings. Grew up with both parents. I have six sisters. And I often tell people the way I am, the way I move through the world is because I was raised by women. My mom has been my rock. She's my idol. She's my superhero. She's been going through some tough times lately, but however, her inspiration throughout my life has been kind of like my North Star. And yeah, that was my childhood.
So, talk about yourself growing up. I want to know what kind of kid were you in high school, and were you always a sports kid or academic kid? What kind of kid were you?
Well, I was not an academic kid. However, I do think I was better than I would have been if I didn't have sisters who, as I like to think, women tend to be a little bit more academic and more organized than we men. But it did kind of influence me. So I did a lot better than I would have. But I was all basketball, and although I did play football and baseball kind of faded out because, it wasn't as entertaining for me growing up. I was actually better in football in middle school and probably around ninth grade. But as I started growing, it just felt more appropriate to be a basketball player. And all I did was really infuse the work ethic I got from both parents. Both my parents are from other islands, wasn't highly educated, but one thing they did have was high values and character and an unmovable work ethic. And I saw that throughout my childhood because it was modeled every day. And I just took that and just put it into basketball. And, as I was growing up, I focused on trying to be the best person, but making sure that no one ever outworked me. And that's who I was as a person. I wasn't that social. I was very social amongst my team, but I was really driven because, St. Thomas, the U.S. Virgin Islands as a whole, little do people know, is a very violent place. Great to visit, but in 2018, it was considered the murder capital of the Caribbean. It was considered top four in the world. So when you grow up in that type of environment, you almost have to be tunnel vision on your path of finding a way to get off the island. And my only way off the island was to really pursue basketball in a very deliberate way. And nothing was going to discourage me from doing it.
Did you have somebody who mentored you,
Yep.
or your high school coach? Who's that person?
Well, I had someone named Cyril Benjamin. He's one of the U.S. Virgin Islands legends. And he grabbed me when I was very young and saw the work ethic, saw the grit, and also saw the lack of fundamentals. And he pulled me to the side and just said, hey, I believe you can be really good. Just start coming around. I started coming around. I started learning the fundamentals. started learning how to put in the work versus just wanting to play. And that became a habit. And as you know, Bill, being around the game your entire life, the ones that really excel are the ones that fall in love with the work and feel appreciative of the games. And I was very fortunate to be around someone that felt that, you know, working on your game was way more important than playing. Playing was the fun part. His name was Cyril Benjamin. Yep.
So talk about, so then now you're ready to leave high school and you're off to college. Well, of course, we know where you ended up, but how did
Yep.
that happen and why USF?
Oh, man, that is so many people have told me, you know, I should write a book. And if I ever do, this part of my book should be a whole separate book because I didn't go straight from St. Thomas to USF. You know, back then I tell people like we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have Instagram, you couldn't go viral. So back then you had to leave the islands to be seen. And little do people know, Tim Duncan was actually a swimmer. And it was a hurricane that destroyed where he grew up swimming, where he moved to the States, and that's when he switched to basketball. So similar to Tim Duncan and everyone else, I had to leave the islands. And I left the islands when I was a junior in high school. So I ended up going to Florida to a school called Berkshire Braves. And it was a small private school where a bunch of us got recruited to play on this team that was like 2-30 the year before we got there. Then we were like 30-1. And it was 17 of us, Bill. And all of us played in college. And then most of us played in Division One. And it was one of the best teams to this day I ever played on. I mean, our practices, we had Billy Donovan, Calvin Sampson, we had Tubby Smith. I mean, these were the people in our practices. And that was my first experience off the islands. And because I was from the United States Virgin Islands and everyone else was from like Panama, you know, Puerto Rico, Costa Rica, and other places, although I was doing really well in practice, the coach didn't really play me. And his excuse was, I was from the United States, and if it doesn't work out, I'll be fine. So what ended up happening after I felt demoralized and felt like this dream wasn't for me, I went back home, totally deflated, almost wanted to give up. And my mentor, Cyril Benjamin, said, no, that's not happening. You've already kind of championed or conquered the Virgin Islands where you became one of the best players, if not the best player during your high school career. There's nothing more for you to do here. You got to go. So another opportunity came where I ended up going to Kentucky. Complete different story. I stayed with a host family, the Birds, who to this day is like my second family. And I remember coming off, getting out of the car with my coach, John Tisnes, who's another coach that I love. I remember getting out of the car. I got my headphones on, baggy pants, you know, hoodie on. And then the family who's hosting me comes out, polos, you know, country shorts. And we're both looking at each other. What are we getting ourselves into? Right. So we went from that feeling to when I left after having one of the most unbelievable years of my life. You know, I became, you know, one of the top players in Kentucky. You know, I was top 5, top 10 in scoring, top 5, top 10 in rebounds. And at the end of my experience there, when I was leaving, we were all crying, right? And that experience changed my life. That's where I met my son's mom. And that's where I truly realized the difference in coaching. Because here I am, the same person, Bill, won a championship in high school in St. Thomas. We beat a school that was winning championships 6 years in a row. Became the MVP, became the best player, went to Florida, didn't play, and felt like I couldn't play because of a coach. And then I went to Kentucky, and because of a coach, I felt like I was the best player in the country. And because of that coach, Bill, he helped me get on the Kentucky All-Star team. I think I was the first player to ever make it that wasn't born in Kentucky. And I remember going to the tryouts, and that doubt that I accumulated in Florida crept in the first day I was there. And I remember my coach pulling me to the side in front of everyone and said, man, I did, you know, I crawled and clawed for you to make this team. And I told everyone you was one of the best players in the state. And here you are playing like you don't want it and you're scared. But he told me that in front of everyone because he knew I would respond. he knew that I loved and I cared about him so much. I wasn't even doing it for me anymore. I was doing it for his reputation, right? Because he put his reputation on the line. So after he did that, I ended up first play of the next portion of the workout or tryouts. The ball got tipped to me, got it, dunked on someone, and the rest was history. And then I remember when they were picking the team, I had done so well. They picked all the players, and they had one more spot left. I remember having a towel over my head saying, like, even if I don't make it, I knew I made my coach proud. I knew I gave it my best. And as I was thinking, the rest of the locker room started chanting, "Gumbs better be on this team. Gumbs better be on this team." And then when they called my name, the whole locker room just started yelling, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. And during that year also, Bill, at the end of the year, the West used to play against the East. And I forget, but the West team, I think, or the East team used to be the team that would get all the Lexington players and Louisville players who would generally go to those schools. And then the team I was on normally get blasted by this team. So we're playing in the East versus West All-Star game, and we're already told we're going to get blown out. And all the schools were there. Cincinnati was there. And when Cincinnati was there, that was a year after Kenyon Martin got drafted #1, and they were the #1 team in the country. So long story short, we ended up beating them. I had like 25 and 15. I got MVP. And all of a sudden, Cincinnati started recruiting me, right? And while Cincinnati was recruiting, this was way after USF was recruiting me, because USF found out about me before I even got to Kentucky, because my mentor, Cyril Benjamin, went to school with Bill Hogan, who was a former AD. And my coach called him from the island saying, "Bill, I got a kid leaving Florida that no one knows, and you need to get." I didn't know this until after I graduated, though. I didn't even know how I got to USF until after. That's how secretive those two were. So Coach Wade was the one that recruited me. So he came to visit. I haven't even touched a ball yet. And they started, really cultivating that relationship. And if you know anyone from the islands, we're all about community and relationship. So he came to about 4 games. And I think each game I had 40, right? And they were recruiting me. So when Cincinnati started recruiting me, of course, #1 team in the country, they're sponsored by Jordan. My best friend is at Oklahoma. They just went to 2 Final Fours. And he's calling me every day, "Man, you got to sign big time. You got to go big time." And he almost got me because he knew how much I love Jordan apparel. He's like, "Man, they're sponsored by Jordan. How can you turn that down?" And then when it came time to make the decision, I remember being in Huggins' office and Coach Matthews called me, Bill. And he called me and he said, "I have someone that wants to talk to you." So he gives the phone to my mom. This guy flew to St. Thomas, knowing that I was probably going to sign with Cincinnati, got the most important person in my life on the phone. And my mom said a few words. She said, "I like this guy. He graduates everyone, and I want my only son to graduate." And at that time, Cincinnati had the worst graduation rate in the country. I don't even know how you do that. So, and the reason I told you that story is because the decision to go to USF was hinged on the values of my upbringing, being my mom's only son, being a person of color. Graduation was very important. Graduating was very important to me. And Coach Matthews was graduating everyone. So that's, I know you didn't ask for that long story, but not too many people know that. But that's how I got to USF. And then when I got to USF, I had all these expectations. I was supposed to be like freshman of the year, all that stuff. And that's when I found that I had a son. And Bill, as you being a dad and a grandfather, my whole life changed. It went from me wanting to go be the best player in the NBA to like, I got to start modeling my life for my son. So I'll stop there because that was a lot. But yeah, that's how I got from St. Thomas to USF.
Yeah, but that's a couple of different directions. Right now, let's stay with the basketball. Talk about your first year at USF, and was it easy, hard? Talk about that.
To this day, because of my freshman year, I tell people that the biggest jump in sports, I think, is high school to Division I basketball or Division I sports. Because generally, unless you're playing on the elite high school or AAU teams, you're going to play against maybe one or two Division I players. When you go to college, Division I, not only are you going to play against players who are all Division I's, but now you're playing against juniors, sophomores, seniors, fifth year seniors. And to answer your question, it was one of the most challenging, eye-opening experiences for me. Because out of high school, we're all the best. We're all thinking we're the man. But that first conditioning practice when Coach Matthews said, "Yeah, I kicked your butt to get you here. Now I'm gonna kick your butt." I will never forget that. It was one of the hardest years of my life. And I struggled, and that struggle is what allowed me to grow. Yeah.
Talk about, because I know you guys had some big games, and I know, and as a matter of fact, I was at the game uh, when you guys beat Gonzaga. I was there.
Really?
Stormed the court.
I-
Talk
Okay.
about that. That had to be a pretty huge game. Talk about the mindset for that game.
Yeah. And something I teach at the academy too that we're going to get to, the mindset for that game started maybe a week before, right? And I often tell people, and even my son, that the preparation for a game doesn't start. If you're preparing for a game mentally the day of, you've already lost. So I had this thing where, and everyone that knows me know, like when I'm playing or I'm playing in a big game, don't call me, don't talk to me, because I am laser focused. Like everyone I saw had on Gonzaga clothes during the week. My teacher was Mark Few. Like all I could see was Gonzaga. So the mindset was I had to be laser focused in every practice leading up to Gonzaga in order to perform. So what you're doing, like any musician or performer, you're performing and rehearsing the whole week. So when you get to the game, you're not even thinking. So the focus was we're leaving that game beating them, and nothing was going to deter us from that as a team. But my mindset was my team needed me to play at a high level, and I came out super confident because the preparation was done days before. And there's a book that I credit for my mindset called Mind Gym that I give to a lot of my students, because I think oftentimes I actually bought it for, I'm a gifted to some players, but oftentimes we as athletes, we're told to, lift weights, condition, but not too many times we're being taught how to strengthen the brain and the mind. Because as you know, at the next level, Bill, everyone is similar in athleticism and ability. But the things that really separate the great ones are the ones that really focus on the mindfulness and the mental strength.
So now let's talk about your academy, EMA. That is, I think, is super special. And I think that it reflects yourself. So talk about how in the world did that happen? And just talk about the day that you thought, hey, I could do this academy, because that is truly special.
I wish it was. I wish it was a day I woke up and I had an epiphany, but it was an accumulation of thoughts. As I mentioned, my coach in the Caribbean, I think he's impacted at least 50 people from the Virgin Islands and helped them gain education outside of the United States Virgin Islands. And then my coach in Kentucky, who I consider to be the most positive, empowering coach. And all these experiences in the back of my mind, these role models were my idols. And I felt that I wanted to be a coach because, as you know, there are more bad coaches than there are good ones. So I was already planning to coach at some capacity. I mean, my ultimate goal is to coach in college, But like I told you, when I got to USF and I had a son and I saw where youth sports was going, and I knew my son wanted to get involved, I felt that I needed to become all the great coaches that I had experienced bundle up in one for my son, but also for all the children in San Francisco. So what I did was paid attention to every country I played in, saw how they did it in Europe, right? Saw how they did it in South America, took the best qualities of their youth development program, which are better than the United States, hands down, because they focus on the human development. Took what Cyril Benjamin taught me in the Virgin Islands and really just built an alternative option for people that not only want their children to receive high quality coaching and mentorship, right? But also to give them a platform where they can become confident and really prepare for life. Because we all have to hang up our sneakers and compete in what I like to call the real game, which is life. And you got to learn how to work with people. You got to learn how to move throughout the world and be somewhat competitive, because you got to earn respects and earn money to support you and your family. So how do we prepare the youth for that? We all become adults. So the academy is just a reflection of how I think youth sports should engage with children. And it started off just as a hobby because I did it every time I came back from Europe. And then it just kind of grew into this thing where we've touched 3,000 children. We have active 427 children a year. The thing that I'm most proud of is we've given over $500,000 to children that wouldn't normally afford it, which probably would have been me if I grew up in San Francisco. But it's just this high quality leadership and basketball development program for children from all walks of San Francisco and the Bay Area. We serve 95% of the zip codes. And I think we're the only program that does that.
So talk about your academy. Is there another academy like yours? And also, where's your academy going? What's your goals for it?
Great question. I mean, I would like to think there are many other academies or programs out there trying to do right by the children. I know there are other people out there fighting to give our children the best option for them to self-actualize, because the main purpose of all of our existence is to be the best version of ourselves. And so, yeah, to answer your question, I think there are other academies, but I don't think all of them are quite like EMA, because I've been building EMA to be more of a corporation, because the vision is to concrete it in San Francisco, which is one of the toughest places to build something like this, and then create satellites in other cities. And it's interesting, one of our coaches is from Chicago, and one of our visions is to create a satellite in Chicago one day.
So right now you're in San Francisco.
We're in San Francisco.
Okay, so are we going to California? Are we going nationwide? What's your vision for where your future is going to be?
Great question. The vision is to put this in nationwide. Like I said, we've been running for 11 years. We have like 130 something or 20 something 5-star reviews of families telling their stories, and not particularly talking about us, but telling their stories of how their child got impacted. And we feel that that experience could really be captured in every major city, because there are a lot of parents who we have heard, like, they didn't know something like this exists. We have an annual event called Empower Fest, August, all right before Labor Day weekend, the weekend before. And it's an infusion of March Madness and the NBA All-Star Weekend. And what I mean by that is there's a slam dunk contest, 3-point contest, and skills challenge, and a 3-on-3 tournament only for children. And it has really turned into one of the biggest events in the Bay Area. And I remember when we were giving out our awards for values, we give it out for selflessness, being daring, being accountable, being an energy giver, being resilient. I remember a parent coming up to me like, I didn't know children can get awards for values. And I told her, like, that's how it should be, right? Because those are the things that's going to really, take them further in life. So the goal is to spread this type of community building entity that really uses sports as a magnet to attract children, because everyone wants to be the next Steph Curry in San Francisco. And my elevator pitch is, we're developing Steph Currys who, when they retire, they become Nelson Mandela or even a Barack Obama. We want to develop leaders, Bill. We want people that not only want to be great athletes, but want to be people that stand up for what's right and do the right things when no one is looking.
Talk about USF and how they've been involved with your academy.
Well, I don't think, maybe you, but there's not too many people love USF as much as I do. I've been in San Francisco since '01, and I remember when I used to always be on campus and some of the younger student athletes like, man, who's this alumni always around? And so the vision has always been to bridge the gaps between the USF community and EMA community, which is primarily San Francisco. And USF has been a pillar for EMA because EMA started in USF's facility about 11 years ago, right? And so first off, if there's no USF, there's no EMA. And as it has been growing and really infiltrating the community, USF has really, hold true to the change the world from here, and really found ways to elevate and highlight what we're doing in the community. The Hilltop Club, which is another, it's not USF, but it helps out the student athletes at USF. They've partnered with us, but USF has been instrumental because they've allowed us to use their platform to create and gain more visibility. They did that legacy game tribute in the Chase Center, which I haven't really been able to get over to this point. It was such a surreal experience. My sisters were able to fly in and experience it. I had friends travel from all over the country and come check it out. And I always said, because my mom taught me this, Bill, she always said, make sure who you are off the court outshines who you are on the court. And the fact that I got recognized at the legacy game for what I'm trying to do in the community and how I'm trying to change the world, how I'm trying to change the narrative of youth sports, where it's not about winning and losing, it's about character development and human development. That is one of the most prideful experiences of my life, to be highlighted for community work, because I feel that if we have more athletes doing that with their platform, the world becomes a better place.
I think I'm going to ask him, how has Father Paul influenced you in your journey?
First of all, Father Paul is one of the most intelligent humans I've ever been around. And I try not to keep up with how many master's degrees he has. But, Bill, and hopefully you can resonate with this, but people like us don't get opportunities sometimes to be in the same room with people like that. So I take it very seriously when Father Paul carves out time for me to walk in the park. I almost treat it like Gonzaga's, like I'm walking with Father Paul on Saturday. So everything has to be cleared. Nothing is going to disrupt that. And he's just really created a sounding board for me. There were times, as you could assume, because you run a business yourself, EMA has been very, very challenging to build, especially when you're going against the grain. Everybody else is over there doing the same thing because it's easy. I'm over here trying to go against the grain, building something more fruitful for the children. So it's been very hard, but he's always told me, stay true to the values, stay true to why you're doing it, and be committed to the children. And when I've been able to keep those three things in front of me, and let me just highlight the children part. My son is a part of that children group. And when you have those three pillars, and you have someone like Father Paul being a sounding board and giving you advice on things you wouldn't even think of, giving you feedback and just sharing his wisdom, but also sharing his time. Because as you know, Father Paul, his time is scarce. So whenever he calls out an hour or two for me, it's pretty surreal that someone like him would carve out time. But he's such a mentor, such a person that wants to leave the world a better place. And he sees me as a vessel, and he really believes in the academy. So he's done so much for me. I can't put it in words. And he's someone that I would forever be grateful for.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Jerome, thank you so much for being on the show. Naturally, I'm available for you anytime. Let me know. And,
So, can I say one thing?
Of course.
You've been instrumental yourself. I've never thanked you publicly, but what you said in our documentary hold a lot of weight when you said EMA was rare and it was a dying breed. And I know you're gonna probably deflect this, but having met you and you gravitating to what I'm doing and really just being another sounding board for me has been empowering for me, because I know you know the game. I know you've seen a lot, and for you to consider what we're doing to be rare has been a very fortunate thing for me. So I just wanted to thank you for believing in what I'm doing. Yeah. So yeah, you wasn't gonna get off this video without me doing that. So thank you. You can go ahead now.
Well, I'm not going to deflect that.
Okay, good.
but you do the right thing as far as being able to teach them the right way. Kids want that. They want good basic fundamental skills. They want to have a great understanding of basketball.
Yep.
It's not an individual game. It's a team game. And I have a strong appreciation for the kids being taught how to play the right way. And that's in a team.
Yep.
You do a great job of that. So anytime, pal, I'm available for you.
You're the best, Bill. And this was such a extraordinary opportunity. And when you asked me to do it, I believe I said yes before you finished asking me. So thank you again at any time.